Hello, and welcome to the first of, hopefully, many conversations with fellow creators, developers, and members of the flight simulation community. Today, we are talking with HDSim, formerly known as HD Simulations, who started creating content back in 2019. We talk about his first introduction to aviation, what made him start creating content, and his most embarrassing moment while streaming on this episode of the Up in the Sky podcast. It's nice to see your face for the second time.
Yes.
In 2 weeks, actually, because we saw each other last week at Sun and Fun.
Right.
So
Right.
it's funny how that works in life. Is now I've seen your face twice in 2 weeks, and most people have never seen your face.
No. And I think, for me, I think it's kind of fun when somebody never seen me and then I walk up on them. They're like, oh, because there's people that within my circle of simmers, right, that they haven't met me, but we feel like we know each other. So they tell me, on Flight Sim Expo, when I'm going to be the one to walk up to them because they want to know what I look like. Now they said, well, if we see somebody's hanging out with XP 72, then we'll probably try to. I said, well, don't worry about that because I'm not, because I'm going to walk up to you and say hi, and then you will know who I am. So it's kind of fun.
So was there when you started streaming, how long ago did you start streaming?
Back in, I would say 2019, I was not trying to stream because when I first, I started doing videos, right? And because, my love for aviation, so the first, streamer that I was started watching was this gentleman named Castrator. And I'm pretty sure you heard of him because he's no longer doing it. I was a big follower of Castrator, right? Every on Friday nights and when he's doing his GA or Monday, that's who I started following. And there was this other gentleman that I followed. I think he's up there in the East Coast too, but he only fly GA. I forgot what GA plane he used to fly. He all used to fly a lot in the West Coast. And I grew up in the West Coast. Because of that, I'm familiar with the terrain. So, of course, I want to watch him so I can say, hey, and this is when they first started using ortho, right? So I'm like, oh, wow, look at this, And so Castrator, I forgot the other gentleman's name, I used to follow him. He used to fly GA all the time in that region. And there was another gentleman, he's from, I would want to say, not Denver. He was the next Utah, Salt Lake. Okay. And I'm sorry if I forgot his name, but I follow him as well. So there was a group of streamers, right? They all knew each other. Okay. They were either on Twitch and YouTube. I follow those guys. And then that's pretty much how I got into watching, because at first I said to myself, wait a second, I've been into aviation since I was in high school. Okay. And, I wanted to go to the Air Force Academy because I wanted to fly. So mom said, nope, that's not going to happen. But you can go and be an engineer and help build those planes. You can do that. And then that's the path that I chose. I went to, when I went to college, I went to engineering school. But that quickly changed because I went to information technology. But I still have my passion for flying. So I had family that was in the military. They were in the Navy. And they were based out in San Diego. This is back in those days where Top Gun was still alive down there in Miramar.
Right.
And so I used to go down there every weekend. And like I tell people at Sun and Fun, it's like I used to be next to those jets all the time, every weekend, because I get past the base, the Air Force and Tomcat, which is my favorite warplane of all time. Okay, there's nothing going to beat that to me. I love those new planes, but if you talk to an aviator, that's what I want to be called. They want to be called a fighter pilot. They're an aviator. They will tell you, and the one that used to fly the Tomcat, now they fly the F-18, the Tomcat is their favorite fighter. Okay? It was right on the stick. Listen, the new stuff we have is nice, but it's nothing like flying a Tomcat. And then the mechanic will tell you the same thing. So there's affinity for that Tomcat. And it was a big bird. It was big.
Oh,
When
yeah.
people see it, and when I first saw the Tomcat, they had a air show at Miramar. They had the Tomcat, the F-15 Eagle, and the F-16. I'm like, my goodness, this Tomcat is bigger than those. I mean, I thought the F-15 was big, but not compared to the Tomcat. So, so I pretty much was in love with that plane. So I was kind of a lot into aviation, not just the newer stuff, but I go back to, the old planes. That's what I was into. So aviation was when I didn't start getting into airliners until I would say 28, when I started watching Castrator, those guys, the GA, the airliners, that's when I started getting into that. And then I started doing videos because one guy that I worked with, he had RC planes. So this gentleman, he told me, hey, I want to show you something on lunch. I said, okay. We went out, he opened his trunk, and I see this big RC plane in his trunk. I'm like, whoa, what are you doing? They said, oh, I fly him. There's a spot over here. We're going to go to lunch, and I can show you. Okay. So he went down there and showed me and fly. I said, wow. I said, this is expensive because if this thing crash, he go,
right.
And he said, yeah, it does happen, and it's going to cost money. I said, yeah. Because he was trying to get me. When he found out that I love aviation, he was kind of showing me things. Hey, you might want to. I said, nah, that's too expensive. I don't know if my wife would like that. And then he goes, well, in order for you to get into this, why don't you start looking at some flight simulators? See, this is where it's at. When you start looking at flight simulators, I said, flight simulators? I said, yeah. Try Microsoft, FSX, back in. So,
FSX.
Yeah,
oh,
FSX.
yeah.
So
I cut my teeth on FSX.
Yeah,
so yeah.
He gave me, the link. And then he said, yeah, go check it out, download it. He said, first learn how to do these things on the computer first before you try the RC. Okay. So I went and looked at the FSX. And then this is when I started seeing P3D. Okay. Because, and the thing is, when I started seeing P3D now, this is why I was introduced to PMDG. Okay. And I see they had these big planes. I said, wow, look at this. But when I look at the price, I said, nah.
Just a little expensive.
Yeah, I'm not doing that. Okay, this is, well, you can go to buy the student bag, but I'm not a student and I'm not going to do that. Okay. So the first time I was introduced to that, right? And I said, wow. And then I look at the FSX, got the little demo, tried it and stuff like that. And I said, I need something that I can fly on my phone. So I started looking. Now, you see where I'm going with that, right?
X-plane.
There you go. And then I said, oh, they got X-plane. Okay, let me try it. So, with the demo of X-plane with the thing, they just give you one spot, Seattle, right? They give you a couple planes and I'm like, wait a second. They got to have something that can actually fly anywhere I want. Why I'm restricted to this area here? And then I did the search and said, well, there's a desktop version of it. I said, now we're talking. Now, at that time, I had a Mac. That's what I had. Okay. So I'm one of those guys that started on a Mac. And it's kind of funny, XP72 started on a Mac. and Blue Games started on a Mac. And those guys. So I said, well, at least I'm not by myself. So the Mac is not, I would say, the best laptop for, put a simulator on. Now, if you have the Mac Daddy Mac, oh yeah, you can run it because I know a couple of guys that still run X-plane on the really strong Mac. But for me, I was not trying to do that. But so I started with X-plane 10. And so now I started, watching, learning. That's when I was into the secure pilot. He was doing videos and then a tutorial. I learned a lot from him. And then there were, I think this gentleman Rasmussen, he did all the videos for X-plane.
Yeah.
So I followed him, and then of course Castrator and those guys. And then I started following for Citation Max because he was part of that crew. And so that's how I started. And then lo and behold, I ran into this one night I was watching, just searching. I ran into this streamer. He goes at that time he goes by CJ Hollister. He since then changed his name because of copyright thing, but he was CJ Hollister. He was flying from, I think, Portland to San Francisco. And he was an X-plane. And I'm enjoying it. I'm listening to him. I said, wow, this guy, I wonder he's from California because, you got to have a feel for it. So I'm listening to him. So I subscribed to his channel. back then he had the fancy thing when your name pop up, say, hey, welcome.
Right. Yeah.
And
When you
then,
subscribe.
right.
Yeah.
And then, so I thought that was cool. So when he landed in San Francisco and I'm looking at the scenery, I'm like, bro, how long you been doing this? Oh, well, I've been, for a while. And you don't have the Mr. X freeware for San Francisco. You're going to land in this? Oh, no. I got to help you out. Now, remember, I'm not stupid, but I said, if I'm going to watch you, I'm going to have to. You can't be flying in that now. And back in the day in X-10, it was like, okay, really? So so that's how I was introduced to him. So I sent him the link for Mr. X. I said, get San Francisco, get San Diego, get Phoenix, get Boston, get these things, and then get Portland. Don't fly out of these. Come on. And then so that's how we were introduced. And then next thing I knew, I'm watching another streamer, XB72. I said, wow, look at this. I said, this guy sounds, he's from Jamaica, he's Caribbean or something. I said, all right. So I'm watching him. And then, so subscribe, start watching him, he starts seeing me his channel all the time when he's streaming and stuff like that. And next thing I know, I saw the other streaming and CJ Hollis on his chat. I'm like, whoa, okay. This is a community. So this is how those two guys, CJ Hollis and XB72, and then Castrator. I met Castrator in person, by the way, at really the first HDSim Expo in Vegas. Okay. The first expo was up there in Providence, up there near, I forgot where it was, but it was up there. And then this is where, the castrators and all those guys were then I kind of follow it. And then now these other guys took over and they had their first one in Vegas. And I was going to be there. So I would be there. That's when, it was nice. I met, Castrator, Chewy, that out of London, mm-hmm. And Castrator's a big guy. Now I knew he was tall, but when I saw him in person, I was like, whoa. It was, but very approachable, very nice guy, because I didn't want to go up to him. And my wife said, isn't that guy that you watch all the time? Why are you sitting over here? Go over there and take a picture with him. I'm like, really? You're embarrassing me here.
You're embarrassing me, honey. Stop
it. And then Cassidy heard it. He said, come on, I'm not going to bite. I said, oh, boy. So I went over there, took a picture with him and stuff like that. It was a lot of fun, and my wife was there, to support me because you see, this is what I like and stuff like that. And then, so I said, you know what? I'm going to be at the next HDSim Expo. And of course, the next one was in Orlando. This is my backyard. Okay. And I'm going to be there. So me and XP had already met. Okay. We not in person because the first time I saw him in person was at Sun and Fun. So he said, okay. He said, you live up there that way? I said, yeah. I said, you come to Sun and Fun? He said, yep. I said, well, I get to meet you. I said, don't worry, I'll find you, because he didn't know what I looked like. So the same way I did you, he was sitting with his two sons, and then I just walk up with him. I said, what's up, XP? And he's like, oh, man, that's how we met. And then we've been friendly ever since. And
awesome. So obviously you got introduced to X-Plane via your cell phone, which is not everyone's story, but it is interesting that that's how the route that you took to get to flight simulation. So obviously you're watching all these flight simmers and they're streaming, they're recording videos, all this kind of stuff. What kind of piqued your interest to actually start recording your flight simulation videos?
Because I wanted to experience what they were doing. Everybody that I watched, I knew that I couldn't stream. I didn't have the machine to actually stream. And I have to tell you, Micah, you do this, recording thing, and obviously you know what you're doing, the trick of the business. So I knew my laptop was not as strong. So I had to do a lot of things to make sure that the video didn't look bad. So a lot, you know what I mean, in the background. So when I put 100%. The video out, okay, so because this is why people that been following me since I was doing video, they would tell me, you come from a long way, man. Because I remember when you used to put video, even though sometimes your video, the quality was not as good, in terms of, you can tell I was trying to make it smooth and stuff like that. But they said you were persistent. And that's why they stuck with me. They said, for a guy that's that persistent, we're going to stick with you because you didn't have the best quality video, but you still put out something.
Right. You still made content and you still put it out there,
Yeah,
whether or not, all the critics saying, oh, this looks like crap, this sounds like crap, whatever, you still kept pushing it out there, even though
yep,
you got all that
yeah,
negative.
and
Yeah.
and then so that's what. But I enjoy doing it though. And the thing for me back then, doing the video, was the fact putting it together. So when I'm doing a video, you know how that is, and it's like I want to show a flyby. There are things that you do
Hmm.
that you would not do
Right.
in normal life. You got something cut, and we get this. Let me get this in because I'm a student. I should say I'm a student again because back in high school, I was the videographer guy that goes around, videotape the football team. This and so I learned that craft. I know how to cut spice and do all that stuff, right? So when I first went to college, that's kind of the direction I wanted to go. But I was kind of pulled in two different directions because I wanted to be in science, but I also like videography. I like film production. I like those kind of stuff because I learned that in high school. So for me, doing those videos kind of take me back. So I can
Right.
put things together, spice it, and then put it out there. So I enjoy doing that. And so in 2019, when I went to the Flight Sim Expo in Orlando, and XP introduced me to Blue Game. See, Blue Game used to do a lot. He was on Twitch, but he does a lot of video production, put a lot of good stuff. He said, this guy do what you like doing. Let me introduce you guys. I'm like, really? He said, yeah, you got to go check out his stuff. And then sure enough, I said, wow, there's nothing compared to what I do because his stuff is like first class, and then, but that's how we got introduced. And then, so XP told me, and I asked him, I said, why you never did video? He said, it takes too long just to put the thing together. I rather stream and put it out there. I'm done. Every now and then I can drop a video, but streaming is the way to go. He tell me, HD, streaming is the way to go. You need to start streaming. I'm like, but I don't have the bandwidth. Well, make it happen. He told me, listen, I didn't start streaming. I started streaming because of XP. He pushed me in that direction. And that's why I started streaming. And, the people that actually watch my video that's coming, listen, if you love something, it's a hobby for me, right? So I'm not in streaming just so, this is what I want to do. I want to make it my, no, it's a passion. It's a hobby. I could be, golfing, but that's my hobby. Okay. And then prior to being in that hobby, my hobby was racing, was cars. It still is. I'm still into that, to that scene. But since I gotten older, I moved away from it. And I told XP, bro, this is what I used to do. This is what I was in. I was so much into cars. My own, I have this, anniversary car that I got from Germany that I used to take on the track. I took track
So you're talking about real cars.
Yeah, real cars. I said.
So you race cars in real life as a hobby.
With my own car. Yeah.
Interesting.
Yeah. So, okay.
I think that's something that probably most people on your channel,
no, they don't
even if they've been watching for a while, probably don't know.
They don't know unless they're watching, when XP talking about cars because he loves cars too. And then he said, bro, you got to see this car. Blah, blah. That's the only time they find out about it. Okay. But for me, actually being on the track with other race cars, racing. Okay. And let me tell you something. The first time I got on it, I was scared because now, you're a novice, you have an instructor trying to teach you, and you see this guy that's been doing the intermediate and advanced, like, oh my God, it's scary. But once you get rolling, you get understanding what's going on. It's adrenaline because, especially, it's not like NASCAR where you go around in circles and stuff.
Right.
This is a racetrack where you have chicane, dips, and the first one I went to was Skid Barber Racing in Alabama. I'm sure you heard of that track.
No, I'm not big in racing. I have a friend who really is.
Okay.
And he probably do it.
Skid Barber
screaming
Racing,
at me right now.
Yeah. Yeah. The manufacturer took us, that had that car. They took it. They had an event for us. And
wait, is this the one up near up Birmingham?
Birmingham. That's exactly what it is.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah. That's got the museum right there.
Yes.
Okay. Yes, I do know which one you're talking about now. Yeah. Sorry, that name. I was like, it's kind of processing. Yep. I was like, wait a second.
That was now that's considered a technical track. I don't want to get off the Flight Sim thing, but that's considered a technical track. So I guess the reason I mentioned that One day at work, somebody came by my desk and they saw 2 pictures. And they keep staring at those pictures. They say, "You must be a speed junkie. Why do you have an F-14 Tomcat and a Porsche right here?" And the things that they have in common, there's a fast.
Fast adrenaline, G's. I mean, what else do you want?
Yeah. So, and then that was funny when they said that. I said, well, that's my favorite fighter. Love it. Love the speed. And that's my favorite sport car. And they said, "Are you one of those guys that drive roof?" I said, "No, I don't." Because when you go take track lessons, they teach you safety. Because you can take that back in the real world to try to be more defensive driver, not just going nuts and crazy. No, I said, I don't do that. I said, that's very careless. You don't do that. Okay. And then, as far as the planes, I'm always going to be into that. I mean, I'll be the guy that's plane spotting, watching them going back and forth. That would be me. And then if I go to the air show, like the F-35, they capture man. They captured me when I was over there. I'm like, whoa. Even when I was leaving, during the performance, I had to stop and look. I said, good Lord, So that's
they can do some crazy things.
Yeah, that's me. So the fly simming, that's how I got into it. XP72 got me into it, and I started from there. And then now I started with X-Men, obviously. And then went from X-Men 10 to X-Men 11, now X-Men 12. One other thing about me is that, my sim of choice is X-Plane. Okay, obviously, anybody who tell you that's what my sim of choice.
100%.
And then, but the reason being is because that's where I was introduced to, because there are a lot of people that was introduced to X-Plane that are now, solely Microsoft. Okay, so for me, it's the mechanic behind X-Plane that I was into. Okay, you have to remember, I'm a mechanical guy. I'm a scientist. This is where I was trying to go. So when I learned about Austin Myers and see, we kind of think alike, because I'm a physics guy. That's me. Okay. And then so the passion, everything that he put behind X-Plane and understanding what he's trying to do. And then, so for me, I stuck with X-Plane. X-Plane doesn't have the best visual. Or never had the best visual. When Microsoft came into the game, they just changed everything. When it comes to graphics, they just changed everything. Now it's like, X-Men who? X-Men what? Are you kidding me? So most people that were looking for graphics and also a good simulator, right? I mean, when I first saw the intro of Microsoft 2020, I was like, whoa, this is going to change everything. Because this is really like virtual reality here. Okay, this is what they're giving you. So, but for me, that was, I knew I was going to get Microsoft 2020, because I said, listen, I can have both. Will I have it for one that I go to? Yeah, this one, but there's a lot of things I like about this one as well. Okay, so I wasn't one that said, oh, well, no, I don't do that. Okay, and then so otherwise I wouldn't spend my money in Microsoft 2020 if I didn't like it. Okay, so 2020, there are the pros and the cons for me, just like X-Men. Okay, one is good at something and the other one is good at a lot of stuff. Okay, so 2020 is the graphics. There's no denying, there's no competition there, okay, when it comes to graphics, right? Because those guys, they take it to the next level, okay? And 2020 will make anything looks good. Even though the developer just give you a crappy plane, 2020 still make it look good, okay?
Right, because it's lighting and how the effects work
Right,
and everything, right?
And then so for me, that's now, what did I not like, but I didn't like the UI of 2020. To me,
I have to agree with that.
Being a programmer, one thing they will teach you, make it simple. Like, that tells you, keep it simple, stupid. Keep it simple.
Yes.
Don't, why are you sending me over here? And then why all those keybinds? What are we doing? Plug and play. And then so for me, that really, I get frustrated.
It's funny you mentioned that because, recently I've done one stream and another video on X-Plane 12.2.0
Oh yeah, yeah,
beta.
I saw that one.
And yeah, and so I found, I didn't say this because I was before I started streaming, but when I was in there programming my joystick and everything, I was like, this is just so much easier to program my joystick and everything in X-Plane 12 than it was in Microsoft Flight Simulator 2020. Now, granted, I fly a lot in 2020, as you can see on my
Yeah,
channel,
yeah.
but it just the that was one of the things that really frustrated me about 2020 when it came out. Besides the fact that it was like broken when it came out,
Yeah, yeah.
And I basically put it on the shelf for about 6 months before I got back into it because I was frustrated how broken it was. But the UI was and still is one of the most frustrating parts about that simulator to me, because whenever I want to change something, I have to go into like 3 different menus. I have to click it, and it was laggy too. Like, so
Mm-hmm.
to me, and this as a IT guy, just like I'm an IT guy, responsiveness is everything.
Yes.
And so when you click something, if it takes half a second for something to happen, there's anticipation and waiting that starts to happen
Exactly.
with the user. And the more that happens over and over and over again, they start to get frustrated with that because they think it's slow. Now there's a bunch of stuff happening in the background, of course, and that as well as I do. But one of the things X-Plane does is when you click something, it's like instant. There's a response, something pops up, and maybe it's a pop-up and then it loads, but there's an instant response.
Right.
With 2020, you click it and it's like the curse. It's like half a second to a second, and then something pops up.
Yep.
Yeah.
Listen, look. Okay. My thing is this. Right?
Not to bash 2020. Again, I fly it all the time. I love that simulator.
Yes.
But that was one of the most frustrating parts to me.
Right. And for me, so just imagine, okay, in 2020, there's a couple planes that I fly. Okay. But there's a few planes I bought. Okay. I got the PMD 700. I got the 900. The reason I didn't get the 800 is because, first, the 900 was discounted if you have the 700. So I'm like, okay, well, I get the 900. I already have a good Zebo I'm flying in, so I'm good there. All right. And then I got the Fenix. Okay. And I had to get that one. And I'm going to talk more about Fenix in a minute. And then, and also now I have the iFly. The Max 8 is my favorite plane. Well, I think you know that. Okay.
No, you don't fly that very often.
So I had to get the iFly. So when the iFly came out, okay, and they reached out to me, they see that I love flying. They said, okay, we're going to send you a copy so you can fly and stuff like that, right? So I went to X372. I said, okay, I need some help. I haven't flown Microsoft in a minute. This bind, the key bind, you got to help me out. So he was the one that helped me set up this key bind. So now, because I was getting frustrated. When I get back to I'm all over the place. So he helped me, and then that's why I'm able to fly. So now I use the same setup to use for the PMDG plane. So I'm good. So I can fly those planes, right? I haven't even touched the Phoenix yet, but I will, because I know, I say, wait a minute. The Phoenix.
And I know you mentioned the Phoenix. So what about the Phoenix?
All right. Phoenix, I'm going to have to, because... Okay, let's see here. All right.
Don't hold back. Let it go.
I'm not going to hold back. Here's the thing. They're one of the best developers I've seen when it comes to detail. Fly model detail. I mean, when you look at the modeling plane, I was in awe. And that's one of the reasons I said, I got to get this plane. Every little detail on that in the A320 is there, outside and inside. And it has to be one of the best ones I've seen that have done that. So from that standpoint, I have a lot of, praise for them. Okay. And it's a good plane. And then the thing that they've done is that they built an outside sandbox, for the flight model and stuff like that, to make sure that their plane is not compromised. So I like that. Now, I know, I think PMDG is trying to do the same thing as well, because they don't want to rely on 2020 when it comes to flight model and certain things. Okay. And as a developer, I appreciate that. And I see that, iFly did the same thing with the Max 8. So I can appreciate that. So with that said, I mean, excellent plane. The only thing is, I don't know how big the team is, but I know it takes them a long time for them to come up with the next project. Just like with the 319, the one that they have right now, it took them a while. People,
321,
but
and now they're
sometimes
working on 380.
you have to understand, if it's not a big team, it's going to take them time. And they make good quality stuff, it's going to take time. Okay? So I don't have a problem with that. Unlike most people, they complain, man, it's going to be 2 years. Well, I mean, if you understand development.
Do you want a good product, or do you want a crappy product that halfway works that takes the developers 2 more years to fix it?
And those guys are not going to give you a crappy product. They rather for it to take as long as it can because they have a reputation to get. Okay, and so for me, they definitely. When I look at Microsoft, look, I've known about PMDG for a long time. As obviously, when I was introduced, that's what I saw. But Fenix is no joke. Okay, if you were to do a poll in Microsoft right now, the top product would be Fenix. As a matter of fact, I know it is. You know what I mean?
Yeah, I mean, I have all 3 of the Fenix aircraft, the 319, 320, 321, and I fly all 3 of them because, like you said, I mean, the quality is excellent. I just inside and out, it is a fabulous aircraft, and the flight model is second to none. And you have real, and I don't know if you watch some of the streamers that I may watch, but there's some out there, some big names out there that are Airbus captains, that fly this aircraft in the world. And they specifically, I remember hearing one of them say, and I won't say his name, but say that he enjoys flying the Phoenix one more than the real one. And I was like, hold on now. I was like, that can't be. Now, of course, I'm sure he would give up flight sim before he gave up his actual flying career. But, the point there was that he recognized how close and how excellent the Phoenix was to the real thing. While and I think that's probably why he would enjoy it more, is because he can relax, right? So he's not actually flying
exactly
150, 200 people behind him.
Exactly. Right.
He can relax and just kind of have fun, but still the aircraft being as detailed and realistic as possible. And I think that's probably what brought, and I think Phoenix, they came out of nowhere.
Yes, they did.
They weren't, it wasn't like they were, they've been in the game for 10, 15 years. They came out of nowhere and they stole the show.
Yeah, they pretty much did.
And honestly, I'm happy about it because, and you know this just as well as I do, we both fly 2020 and X-Plane 12 and 11 and stuff. Competition breeds innovation, which breeds better products.
Yes.
And we are seeing that in real time, and we have for the last 4 years.
Yep.
When 2020 dropped, it altered the timeline of flight simulation for the entire community.
Yes.
It brought in a lot of people, and it also created competition back into the marketplace. Now, Austin and his team had competition they had to fight against, which is why I think we saw X-Plane 12 as quickly as we did, and the quality that it is now with 12.2.0.
Yeah.
And also with developers. I mean, PMDG was the end-all, be-all of flight simulation for the Boeing.
Yes.
But now you have Zebo on the X-Plane side, right? And you have iFly now getting into the game.
Yes.
So, and Bluebird making the 757. So you have these competition coming into the place that is starting to make the big developers, the Goliaths in the room, or the gorillas in the room go, oh, we've got to step up our game.
Yeah. And you know what? I'm glad you said that, because I think a lot of people in flight simming that I watch, it's almost as some of them. I remember when 2020 came out, they want X-Wing to go away. They want X-Wing to be dead. And I said, okay, why? Why would you want one flight sim to control everything? Don't you want the competition to see, now it's time for them to step their game. Now they see this, now you need to step it up. Because I guarantee you, if 2020 was out, I don't think we would see X-Men 12 battle right now. The way it's looking, no. Okay?
100%. And I think even Austin mentioned, I don't remember exactly and what he exactly said, but this would have been after 2020 dropped, maybe a month or two after. that he was, kind of giving like a roadmap of where they're going.
Mm-hmm.
And they mentioned X-Plane 12, and he said, we're hiring more people, we're doing this,
And they
this.
did.
And I was like, yeah. And the reason why they did was because of 2020.
Exactly. So for me, I don't know why, as a consumer, why would you want the competition? Yes, you may have a favorite, but let somebody else keep your favorite honest. Okay?
Yeah, it's like Android and Apple. You may
Oh
love
my
one, hate
God.
the
You
other,
remember that?
but
You remember that? Oh, I have Android, or I have Apple. They going back and forth. I said, listen, they use the same technology. They gonna figure it out, and this one's gonna look better. This one gonna catch up. I said, listen, I'm not gonna even, get into that. And I think, listen, my thing is this, right? I didn't go to FlightSim Expo in Vegas, the recent one, but the crew that I talked to, they were there, and they had a conversation with Austin. And by the way, he's not an easy person. No, I should say he's an easy person to pull and then talk to him. And he's sitting there talking to him and telling him. And then there are things that you see, Austin kind of concentrated on the flight model, the physics. That's it. He hired other people to do it. Where you see X-Men is at right now, that's because of those other folks. Okay. And they brought in the one young lady that used to do Enhanced Skyscape. Remember that for X-Men 11?
yeah,
He's part of the X-Men Laminar team now. She's part of the one responsible for what you see in the way X-Men is looking. And they hired somebody else, that does, lighting. So all you see, they have hired the talent to get them to what people want. Okay? And this is what you're seeing. And it's still a work in progress. It's still going to get where it needs to be. But my thing is, that's a good thing, because when Microsoft dropped 2024, I said, okay, well, what are we doing here? Okay, because I didn't see nothing wrong with 2020. Okay,
right. And I'm not gonna vent here or anything, but like when it dropped 24, I was shocked. I honestly was. I didn't. I don't think anyone really anticipated. Maybe some did, but not that no one I really know anticipated or expected them to drop another version of Flight Simulator. We thought it was just gonna be a big update, and then all of a sudden, boom, Microsoft Flight Simulator 2024, and I'm like, hold on, like 2020 is still not even like done. Like there's still glitches, there's still problems. Like what is going on?
yeah,
Well, I think we all know what's going on.
We're not going to talk about that, but we know.
No, and I don't blame them. I mean, they're doing what their overlords are telling them to do. But it shocked me, but at the same time, it didn't shock me. And we kind of seen what happened with the release of 24. I was like, well, did you really expect anything different?
Exactly.
Considering what we saw with 2020. I thought it would have been better to continue on at least for another year or two with 2020 and develop it more.
Yeah.
With, and enhance that versus a new one. But, whatever Asobo wants to do, they're going to make that decision. But I think the response of Asobo making 2024 was also in part because of X-Plane 12 of coming out. And yes, there were definitely problems with X-Plane 12. I think we can all agree on that. There were definite problems with the release of 12, but I think that spurred them to go, well, they're actually starting to fight back, so maybe we should try to up our game, and it's the tit for tat continues on to this day.
Pretty much. And then I think if you do a poll to see how many people are on 2024 versus 2020, you might be surprised that 2020 is still beating 2024.
Oh, 100%. That would not surprise me at all, because to this day, 2024 is still not stable.
Yeah, and listen, okay. From what I've seen, because somebody asked me, so are you gonna? I said when 2024 gets better than 2020, that's when I'll get it. And I said, first of all, let me say this. Visually, 2020 still look better to me. Ground textures, everything. Now, I know in 2020 there's a lot of masking there because it's a pretty sim. Okay, so there's a lot of things that they do to make it the way it looks. Well, 2024, I can tell you, is not as masking as 2020, at
Yeah,
2020.
2024 has a lot more detail, but obviously they've got some things they've got to iron out for sure.
Yeah, and then so for me, when I look at, so I said, okay, I can see where they're going with 2024, but they could have done that with 2020.
I agree.
Okay, so that's the
It's the same engine.
Yeah, I see what you're doing, but you could do it. You could have done that over here, but we understand why you do it. So we know
right.
why. Okay,
right.
So, but I'm not just gonna be the one that's kind of jump in it just because, like a lot of these people, I'm not doing that. And then, so again, a lot of people that big fan of Microsoft are disappointed on 2024, and then now somebody I heard said on XP's chat in the last news did, they were watching 12.0. They said, see, now X-Men is looking better now. 24 messing around and let X-Men doing these things. So they're not happy. You know what I mean? They feel like, what are we doing? And then they don't have in their mind when it comes to airliners, right? They complain about that because people complain about everything, right? They say, oh, we don't have some good, 737. No, that's true. They don't. They trying to now. Today I saw the release notes for PMDG, the upcoming stuff, and the 737 is all the way in the back. So.
Yeah, because 777 is kind of like their front.
Yeah. So it's like we're not going to get the normal, 737. So now I know iFly is working on getting into 2024. So we hope they get there. Phoenix is already there. Okay. We knew I was going to be there because they're kind of part of Microsoft. Okay. I mean, they do work for Microsoft. But Phoenix is already there. Okay. So now, we got Phoenix. Okay. And then we got the I-9 350, which that's a whole nother topic discussion. So we're not going to really talk too much.
That's a whole different episode.
Yeah. I'm going to leave that one alone. But because somebody asked me, oh, I know you're going to get that bird HD. Yeah, I didn't answer that question. I did not. I just let that one alone. But
so, yeah, sorry, go ahead.
But what I'm impressed with in 2020, the developers I'm impressed with, Phoenix is one of them. Working title is another. And
black square models.
And then oh my God. Fly-by-wire. The work that they do, oh my goodness. The 380, okay, the 320. You know how when X-Men first came out, Zebo came out of nowhere, and then they pretty much kept X-Men floating because he was doing such a good job. This is what the fly-by-wire did with the A320 Neo.
100%.
Okay? So
100%.
So I would tell people, don't forget about these guys. Okay?
Right.
Fly-by-wire, have a lot of respect for. Okay? So if you say, what do you have? I say, well, I have the fly-by-wire, I have the 380. As a matter of fact, I have what they have for my. So if I'm going to take the time to make 2020 work for me, those are the planes that I'm going to take the time to make work. Because I know how good they are. So, the thing people will always say is, well, you're an X-Men guy. Yeah. But if something is good over here, I'm going to tell you it's good. Okay? I'm not going to, sitting here and say, oh, no. I'm going to tell you what I like about it and what I wish could be better about it. Same thing for X-Men. Okay, it's going to be balanced here. I'm not going to be, yes, if you say, which similar, okay, it's X-Men. But at the same time, there's a lot of stuff X-Men need to do better. Okay?
Right. Yeah, it's like X-Plane, obviously there's definitely some stuff I think needs to be better on performance-wise. Of course, 12.2.0 really helped, at least on my system. Mm-hmm. It had a pretty
I think it helped all around. Some people's having some issues, but I think it did help, yeah.
Right. I still think X-Plane has the best default airports by far. And that's because of the community, right? Because of the community airport system and that development. I think that was excellent. I think Microsoft Flight Simulator, they have the ability to go in there and you can make your airport stuff, but they don't make them a part of the sim. You have to go and download them separately.
Yeah.
And I think that has hurt. I think they should have taken that and been like, hey, we should probably try something like this. and move forward the community approach. But that's for them to decide. But well, let's shift gears a little bit. We have a little bit of time left.
Mm-hmm.
I want to ask you a question. What's the craziest stream or recording experience that you have experienced since you started doing it?
Wow. Okay. I was flying the 732. You know that one by Flight HDSim?
Mm-hmm.
So this is when I want to learn how to do the VOR to VOR. And I forgot where I was flying from, but I was confined to Nashville. Yeah, I got there all right. But I crashed. And then the plane exploded. No. You know how I explained the explosion?
Yeah.
I'm trying to look for that video. The thing flew down the road and crashed. Because the only thing that came to my mind is the other day when I flew into Nashville. It looked so pretty because I've been in Nashville in real life, so I knew what the airport and the surrounding looked like.
Right.
So I said, yeah, this is where I crashed, the 732, right? and then I went to the outside shot, and it was in the flame. I'm like, wow, okay, So that's the one that's kind of really come at me, and the other one was flying into what's that approach? The crazy approach in Central America. Tutankhamun, is that how you say that?
I'm not familiar.
Okay, there's an approach where the first try I crashed it. Let's put it that way. I came around and said, oh man, I gotta redo this again. Because that was well, not crash, it was like, smash, hard landing, wasted, whatever they call it. And then so I did it again and recorded it, and then was able to, in the 7.5, was able to get the proper landing. But the one that comes to mind is the crash I had in the 732 in Nashville.
So was it like landing and it just hit too hard, or did you just nosedive?
It came down too hard, bounced, and it crashed.
Okay, so like you bounced and then just
yeah. And I was outside and in flame. You know how X-Men is very sensitive.
Yeah.
I'm like, well, okay, really? Okay, all right. So it's one of those things that say, oh, well, somebody clip it, they clip it. It is what it is.
Awesome. Well, HD, I appreciate you coming on and talking to me and telling us about your story and about how you got into flight sim and, how you got here. And then, of course, your flight sim, your favorite story of crashing the 732. But yeah, man, I really appreciate you coming on. And for those who don't know you or don't know how to follow you or whatever, where can they find you?
They can go on YouTube, just do a search on HDSim, and they'll find me. And they'll find me all my information for Discord. And of course, my YouTube videos. So HDSim. That's pretty simple because I changed my name from Aviation Simulation to HDSim, and I think you probably remember that I used to be Aviation Simulation. So yes. on Discord, it's still Aviation Simulation. I have to try to find a way to change that. And I'm also on Twitch as well. I don't stream as much on Twitch, but every other day I give them a little something on Twitch. But HDSim, they can find me very easy. Appreciate you bringing me on and to this. This was fun.
Yeah, absolutely, HD. I appreciate it.
Now you can put a face with the voice.
Now they can put a face on it. For those who ever wondered, this is his face reveal.
Yeah, all your VASM, cohorts, they know my voice, man. I can't get away from those guys. It's HDSim, yeah, it's me, yeah.
Is this the first time you've revealed your face on YouTube?
Well, XP caught me on camera before, but he didn't print me out. And then there was a picture we took in 2019, and those of us, people that kind of watched his stream probably can tell who it was. And also my Discord, I took a picture with one of the guys that followed me. That's like a moderator for me when I was in LA.
So you've been out there a little bit, just not like in video form. Here's HD.
This is different. So you're the first one to get this. So
I am honored.
when they do a search, you gonna come up and say, so this is HD. Okay,
this is the guy.
Yeah, that's me. That's me. But listen, it's all love, man. It's all love. Listen, just hope everybody. If you have a simulation to fly, whether it's Micah 2020, X-Men 12, X-Men 11, P3D, enjoy DCS, enjoy it, and just enjoy what you fly. And then like this, we all have something that we can talk about because we all have one thing in common, right? Aviation and flight simulator. That's it.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Absolutely. Well, thank you so much, HD. And thank you all for watching. And we'll see you next time.
Have a good one. See you.
Up in the sky. I was hoping you'd say up in the sky, but that's okay.
Right. Oh, God.